Hello, my name is Linda Offutt. This is my cultural name sign, and I was born in Indianapolis. Just to be clear, I am not talking about Indiana in general. I am talking about the city of Indianapolis. My parents shared with me that they believe there are two potential causes of my deafness. The first one was maybe a result of being sick after getting my tonsils out. The second had to do with going to the doctor when I was about 3. I wasn't ready for pill medication at that time, so they gave me what I assume was a liquid to ingest. I think I was about 3, yeah. Nothing happened right away, but after that, when I was about 4 years old, my family noticed a change. When I was 4, my father kept getting frustrated and would yell my name, and he didn't understand. He thought I was just ignoring him and being defiant, so I got punished for it. He expressed his frustration to his parents, who told him that they should get my hearing checked. Sure enough, they found out that I was hard of hearing. My father felt awful and so guilty. It was sometime later that my parents were watching a story on the news about a woman who had taken the same medication and completely lost her hearing overnight. When my parents found out about this, they both looked at each other and asked each other if that's what happened to me too, since I took the same medication. It was a long name, and I don't have the information of the medication, but today they no longer use it because it was making hearing people deaf. So I became deaf either because of the sickness after my tonsils or the medication. And it's just a suspicion about the medication. There's no proof, which is why my parents couldn't sue. Well, the doctor told my parents that they should do 2 things with me. They should put me in speech therapy and get me hearing aids. My parents decided to follow the doctor's advice. When I was 4, I got my first hearing aids. Hearing aids was something I never really questioned because I had no identity at that time except being a Black person. That's it. Basically, I accepted it all, even though I wished I could have been hearing, but so yeah, I never really thought of myself as a deaf person, instead that I was the same as everyone else. As for my support system, I had many family members that were supportive, and they only wanted what was best for me. They did, however, lack the understanding of the language and cultural identity that deaf people needed. I was deprived of learning ASL, but I didn't know that until much later in my adulthood when I started learning ASL and became an ASL teacher. It frustrates me a great deal and upsets me when I think about how that information was not given to my parents. Perhaps it wouldn't have been the best fit, and while I was able to use my residual hearing, learn to speak, and even talk on the phone, which are all great things, I still experienced a delay in learning. Even now, I still have to work hard to compensate for what I miss. But, I was frustrated by this, yes. There was a lot of frustration in my childhood. So in school, I went to a special needs class, which had 1st through 6th grade students in one class. I skipped a few years there when I attended a public school, but the special needs classroom was all hard of hearing kids like me, and I fit well. It was a good school and everything. But compared to the public school I went to, it was challenging, but I'll explain that more in the next question. There were a lot of barriers. The two biggest were my race and my deafness. In class, I really struggled because the teacher would just talk and I would miss information without realizing it. I couldn't understand why I was struggling so much and why I was dealing with this. It made me irritated and, in some ways, also angry and frustrated. My mom did everything she possibly could to help me. And later, my mom stepped in even more. But even with her help, it just wasn't enough. Later, my parents were sick of living in Lafayette, Indiana. They just didn't like it, and for other reasons. We ended up moving back to my old city, and I got to go back to my old school. I started doing well again. And then about 2.5 years later, around there, my teacher thought that I was ready to go back to public school class and I would fit in well as a kid who could hear. I disagreed with this because of my prior experiences. My mom, on the other hand, wanted me to try again. So I agreed for their sake. But I didn't have peace about it. I went to a new school because when we moved back to my city, we moved into a different area. But anyways, in 7th grade, junior high school, across the street was my dream high school. It was popular, they had a good basketball team, and more. Anyways, I attended classes there. I believe I took 4 classes, and there was no change. I was struggling, and there were barriers everywhere because everyone was talking. I hated it. Making friends came easy to me. I was good at making friends, but it was the classes themselves that were not fun for me. It was awful. Finally, I sat down with my parents because we needed to have a talk. I was getting fed up with my dad punishing me because he thought I wasn't trying. I had it. I told them I wanted to transfer to a deaf school. And my parents were shocked. They asked if it was really what I wanted. Yes, I was trying to be hearing at the school and it was not working. And if I continued, I would fail 7th grade again. So I insisted I transfer schools. My parents discussed this with each other and they considered a private school, but when they inquired, I was denied. And they told my parents that they should instead listen to their daughter. Yes! My parents then contacted the Indianapolis School Board and they agreed that I should transfer to a school for the deaf. But first, I needed to get hearing tests done to make sure I qualified to get in. My parents told the board that I was hard of hearing, and they responded saying that, yeah, the deaf school has hard of hearing kids there. My parents were shocked. Seriously, my mom told me about it. Anyways, the results of my hearing tests were also shocking. The doctor asked me to leave the room, and they asked my parents why I was still being sent like a regular hearing student to school. The doctor asked if they knew my hearing would continue to get worse, and my parents told them that they were aware, but they were hoping for the best. I was kept unaware of this until I was 40. My parents apparently knew this from the time I was 9, when the audiologist told them that I would completely lose my hearing. Again, I was 40 years old when I found out about this. Well, actually over 40, probably 41. So that's basically my experience with that. When it comes to employment, I think I'll pick just one experience I had. Back then, it was called Dayton's, but now it's changed to Target Corporation. When I worked there, they refused to provide interpreters for our half-hour meetings. The only time they provided an interpreter was for their annual get-together, but they refused to provide them for our department meetings. They didn't feel it was worth bringing an interpreter for just a half-hour meetings because of the cost, and that was frustrating for me. Yes, of course, I think it's important, and I believe that every child should find their identity as deaf or hard of hearing. Deaf or hard of hearing, it doesn't matter. It is important for them to have a language. Plus, the child should know who they are and that there is no reason to be embarrassed or depressed over hearing loss. Now, I'm not saying, oh, it's no big deal, but it's just simply that you have hearing loss. Remember, deaf and hard of hearing people can do anything in this world as long as hearing people and parents don't put barriers on them and limit them. Let them thrive. It starts with the parents. Actually, I'm starting to find my own passion here. I'm hoping that someday, if I decide to get my master's, that I will focus on deaf education. My hope and goal is to reach hearing parents to tell them why it's important for children to have language access through ASL. We need to encourage parents to sign. As far as hearing aids and cochlear implants, well, I can get myself into trouble as I have very strong opinions in favor of exclusively using ASL. I firmly believe that the child should decide for themselves when they're a bit older, such as a teenager. They should be old enough to be aware of what they want and don't want. Maybe some believe that a child will be able to know what they want even younger than that, but I say just not too young. If they want hearing aids or cochlear implants, let it be up to them. Now, if someone is an adult, that is fully up to them. It doesn't matter what I think or feel. Just let people be who they are and be proud of themselves. There's no reason to be ashamed of being deaf.